So 10 minutes, 2 minutes, I'll tell you, you're getting close, and if we can get some questions going, as the last submitter did, was very useful, so thank you.
Yep, cool. I'll try and keep this reasonably brief, because I think the questions are important. Agriculture is one of the major drivers in Central Hawke's Bay, as you know from the submission we put in, and the region has some is severely restricted at certain times of the year from moisture deficits. One of the big things that irrigation provides, from a personal point of view, we converted to irrigation 7 years ago, provides a high degree of certainty and enables investment decisions to be made with one of the big risk factors being taken out of play. And with that higher confidence both on-farm and locally for local businesses that are servicing us, and at the regional level, so processors and their associated infrastructure, I cannot underestimate the value that those processors provide to the regional economy and the value that they extract from the produce before it leaves our shores. The bulk of this extracted value is spent locally on skilled labour, not unskilled as some have implied, in these processing plants. Heinz itself employs around 730 permanent staff and another 940 seasonal workers. I'm also told from a meeting that I had with a previous chief executive that it's currently Heinz's 6th biggest plant in the world, with having an annual turnover around $2 billion. McCain's is a similar employer in the region on a slightly different scale. I would argue that the alternative, if irrigation supply reliability is not increased, may bring risk of these plants moving to other regions, as happened with the Tasmanian beans with McCain's and the beetroot that Watties has shifted out. Such a decision on where these plants would be moved would be most likely made overseas, and local input would have very little to do with it. We'd also argue that due to the scale of this project, that there is probably no better outfit that should be both managing it and investing in it than the Regional Council. It has the necessary resources and the expertise to help coordinate this project. And questions?
Questions? Good 3/4 of the time left. Councillor Belford.
Plenty of questions.
Good morning. You and a number of other speakers have referred to Heinz Watties, and as this is going to offer some great benefit to them, increased production and so forth. Are you aware that they've made a submission? And in their submission, now they support the dam, would be fair, they support the dam. He says, whilst the Ruataniwha Plains offers minimal opportunities for Heinz Watties Limited to expand their current operations, and he goes on to explain what his reasoning is about that. But here is a submission by the gentleman who I believe is the major senior crop supply agronomist at Heinz Watties, saying effectively, we don't see much coming out of Central Hawke's Bay as a result of this scheme. We see other benefits to it, but we don't see much coming out. And so people come swooping in here from Irrigation New Zealand and so forth and talk about all of these grand benefits, but the people who seem to be aware of what is happening on the ground don't exactly look at it that way, it seems. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, Heinz Watties' exposure at the moment, Central Hawke's Bay, is a little bit limited, yes. It's mainly just the beetroots that's grown there. The processed peas moved down to Canterbury, where they've got a more reliable supply, I guess was their reason for going down there. Again, bigger irrigation base would be another reason for them moving down there. We are working with Heinz at the moment and trying to get, I think it's Fabia beans, or the beans that are used in your baked beans. They currently source all of that from Canada, and they're working with us to see as to whether we can establish those sorts of crops. So there's still room for expansion. At the moment, I think Heinz is importing 75% of its product from overseas, so
Because it's cheap.
possibly reliability can be another one too. Who knows what comes around the future? I mean, if Australia gets its way and enforces the country of origin labelling and they ban the reprocessing of some of the vegetables from those other countries and re-exporting, they'll have to look at other opportunities, won't they? Who knows what the future will hold?
Thank you. Councillor Bevan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your presentation. Richard, you state that you're a member of the Ruataniwha Water Users Group, and at the end of the day, one of the absolutely critical factors for this whole scheme is a sufficient number of farmers signing up for water. And I imagine that you would be part of an advocacy group to get farmers to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I mean, most of our members are keen to look at that. We've all got room to expand.
Okay, so given Plan Change 6, and there is some uncertainty because we're not quite sure what the final version of that's going to look like, what's your sense of the willingness of your neighbours down there to sign up to this? Is your sense that we'll get 40 million?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've been away for 3 weeks, so I haven't really seen anything for the last month. But certainly everybody's still pretty keen on it. I mean, they've got Plan Change 6 in the back of their mind. I'd also argue that from our perspective, since we converted to irrigation, our leaching from the overseer models that have been done has actually decreased. So irrigation perhaps provides a tool to manage the results of Plan Change 6.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your presentation here, Richard.
Microphone.
Oh. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very heartfelt, and I appreciate that. Richard, I've got a question. When the Regional Council is considering the investing of $80 million into the Ruataniwha Water Storage Scheme, whether to invest or not, should the Regional Councils exercise the highest standards of fiduciary duty? Should they have access to the completed business case and business plan with all the numbers, with no exceptions? And should they be able to ascertain for themselves that the four conditions precedent are met? For example, that the 40 million cubic metres of water is contracted to take unconditionally and contracted to supply unconditionally before making their decision?
I'm sure you should have a really reasonable level of... I'm not completely familiar with the full political process of how all that works between yourselves and HBRC, but I guess that's for you guys to work out amongst yourselves as to... And, I mean, like the other previous speakers said, the information is always a constantly moving target. I think most things, from my experience, have been released as soon as they've been available. And I don't think there's any secret agendas that have been played out in the media.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Mr Dakin, for your submission. I'm going to turn the question up on its head. Do you think, and you've followed the process pretty closely, do you think that condition precedent, the council is actually in a position to make a decision within the immediate future?
Oh, I think you would be, yeah. Yep.
Not as Mr Cowie said today, but certainly within the next few days.
For sure, yep.
Thank you. There's 2 minutes left. Any other questions? Councillor Pipe.
Yeah, thanks. There's been claims actually that workers down there, you know, and if there was an increase in the agricultural scene down there through intensification, that the workers would be the lower paid, immigrant workers, those sort of transient workers coming through. In your view, is that happening now, and what would it happen? What do you think?
I think as a general rule, no. You're seeing, I mean, certainly we've all heard of the Filipinos and those sorts of people working, but are they that lower paid? I don't know. But just from our own personal experience, we've sort of we converted half a property, we've gone from 1 labour unit to 3, and they're by no means lower paid. In fact, I probably pay myself less than everybody else. It's the normal way it seems to work on a farm. Yeah, I mean, you can't, when you've got all these expensive machines and crops and everything else growing, there's a certain level of expertise that's got to be there. And if you pay peanuts, you will get peanuts. So I think you'll find that the skill level will certainly have to be there.
I've just got a quick question to finish. Rate of change in the irrigation sector. The last 5 years has been phenomenal change. The next 10 years are going to be phenomenal change. The ability to grow different crops, etc. What's your view? You must be reasonably confident and excited that going forward the potential is huge.
Oh, it is. And our water use efficiencies and all the rest of it are becoming, higher and higher. We're getting I know they use a unit in Australia called water use efficiency, so kilograms of produce per millimetre applied, that sort of thing. The irrigators themselves are becoming more efficient. Technologies, and now, I mean, I saw an irrigator at the irrigation conference that would actually measure the soil moisture and change individual sprinklers as it went over. So, I mean, something like that, you're going to see more and more efficiencies come over, and a better return out of the resource. It's
Well, thank you. That's 10 minutes up, and thank you for allowing us so many questions. It's a very good way to finish.